So, this is me basically trying to make a good out of a bad situation. I just recorded this entire video muted. So, this is me doing a voiceover, so I apologize if, things aren't directly lined up. But you should get 15 minutes of, me speaking over my own whatever the hell I'm doing on the chart. So, let's jump right into this. I wanted to start off, with a chart here that shows an almost completed impulse to the downside as a wave A. Almost complete. I don't think it is complete yet. I do think we have a new low to be made on Bitcoin around 57,000, which I will touch on later. And this is just, if you have seen my previous video, we were somewhere up here in this wave 4 range. I think I'm going to come in here and show you where we were at the last time of update. I think we were hovering somewhere around the 2026 open, right around the $88,000 level. And I touched on, I think we could see us come sweep this liquidity to the upside at 94K. I think we could potentially see a run up as high as, 97K. And that's exactly what we did here before we started to make that run down towards 80K. Now that was my primary expectation for the next move on Bitcoin. We did end up getting a huge extended wave 5. As you see here, I'm circling the wave 3, which is an ordinary target for your wave 3. But we did end up getting a very large move to the downside, right to 60,000 or so, which indicates an extension here in the wave 5. Now, probably right here at this point, I'm just going over this wave 4 range and the targets we did come to, and how, why downside was more likely here. After that big completed impulse with, the 1, 2 into the third right to target, your next obvious expectation would be to look for that wave 4. So that's why I was looking for the wave 4. Wave 4s are generally, sideways consolidation. They don't retrace very high. 382 fib to 0.5 fib at most, generally. That's pulled from the wave 2 high. And here it looks like I'm jumping over to Bitstamp chart. It's just a clear chart with nothing on it really. For the general outlook of what I'm looking for here, in terms of wave count. And that is to see the completed impulse to the downside. That is not yet confirmed yet. I want to see those 5 waves complete, and then, I can call it an A wave. From the highs at 126,000, I was expecting the impulse to form the whole time, and we did come down, quite aggressively over the last few months. After this A wave is completed here, there's a couple reasons why I think we do have another low in yet again. Below us here at 60,000, we have, a key liquidity grab that we missed out on, and also, a big 618 golden pocket from the lows down at 15,000. And that's just your standard Fibonacci retracement 618 level off log scale. It's coming in at 57.5K, I believe. And then we have one on log scale, which is around 35K, I believe. 35K to 40K is a very realistic target at this point for Bitcoin. That number can change a little bit depending how our B wave plays out. But here I'm explaining why we are looking for at least one more partner leg to this wave A once our B completes. Again, the B can be a zigzag, sharp zigzag to the upside where you do see a nice retracement, or it can be really boring, sideways range trading. We don't know what we're going to get at this point, but we are expecting it to be a duration of time that is around 100 to 150 days long, before we do see that connector partner leg to the downside. And that will bring us down to the next big order block of support, our next little mini range. If we lose the current range, or I should say when we lose the current range, we will come down to those deeper targets, which I have a bunch of levels down there at 40,000. More specifically, the one-to-one extension. Look at the timing on that, and I'm just going. We're looking for that one-to-one extension, like as a big target, paired with the big anchored VWAP from 15k lows. It's coming in somewhere around 40,000 as well. I'm sure we'll see it. I'll go over it here in this video. Again, this is a voiceover, me trying to redo what I just did, fully muted. So I'm doing the best I can here. I just wanted to come in with an update since, we did hit the targets I was looking for on my last video. I figured I needed to put out a new one, what's coming next, even though I kind of, walk through the whole process here throughout. From the top, I've kind of, been walking through what's been going on, looking for the impulse to the downside, looking for the 5 waves. One thing unexpected that did happen, probably for everyone, for me especially, we got an ordinary wave 3, and we did get the extension in the wave 5. It's usually the other way around. You usually get a big extension in the wave 3, and then a shorter, more normal wave 5 that just barely takes out the low of wave 3. So we did extend. Now here I jump back to my main chart. There's a lot of lines on it, most of which you should ignore at this point, even though they all are important. They're used for different time frames. Now I'm touching on, if you really want to see the details of what I was looking for and speaking on back a few months ago, up when we were up in $126,000 range, that bearish distribution range, I keyed out. And I viewed it as bearish way back when, and I was expecting that downside to come. In my most recent video, of course, here, where I was looking for that wave 4 to complete before we made our way to take out the $80,000 lows. Now we did that, and of course much more. We went all the way down to 60,000, and I'll be the first to admit I was not expecting that deep of a retracement, but that's what we got. And here, I'm getting into the more details of what's happening most locally, which is always, most important here. I'm basically saying that it looks like there needs to be one more low to be made here. We have a clear 1-2 structure and a very clear extended third wave where we did react off the bottom of that $60,000 and bounced very aggressively up to $70,000. Now, if you look at this from an Elliot wave perspective, we are missing that wave 4 internally, within the wave 5. And we are coming and testing all this support and demand at that old big range, like 200-day range. And that's why we're bouncing. Now here I do think, we're going to bounce around, potentially come down a little bit, run back up to 73k, sweep that liquidity, and I think we're gonna eventually run back those lows, $57,000. We missed out on a big level down there, a big liquidity level, as well as that golden pocket that I'm just showing here on the chart. Now that is an off log scale golden pocket, 618 Fibonacci from the $15,000 lows. You toggle on log scale, it's down at 35k. Now here I'm just, touching on the range that I'm expecting. I'm expecting this another little wave 4, surprising. Last video I was also expecting that wave 4. Now, it seems ordinary here for Bitcoin to come sweep the lows, run the highs, sweep the highs, run into that 618 extension for the wave C, because we did have, a large aggressive A wave to the upside, 60 to 70,000 quite quickly. And we have not yet really tapped into that big anchored VWAP from when we started the move down at 90,000 very aggressively. So there's a lot of good resistance here, even right above that. If we really run up high, there's the 0.5 fib at $75,000. As you can see, the 382 level is already being strongly respected as resistance, paired right on top there with a high volume node. So it would be totally ordinary to run those highs, run into that anchored VWAP, run into the wave C extension target, complete the wave 4, just like last video, before we come back down and sweep the lows once more at $57,000. Now this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm trading. Right now I'm kind of interested in longs around $66,000 to come back up to 73,000. From there I will be very heavily interested in shorting the market. Assuming the market stays below that 0.5 fib level on a daily, weekly time frame, I will be very interested in shorting down to take out the low again. And then we can get, that long 100 to 150 day period where we, either go sideways in a big range, or we do get a nice, impulsive correction to the upside, a nice zigzag, some nice price action, maybe come all the way back up and fill the CME gap that we left at 81,000. That's a big open gap there. We'll probably fill that. If I really had to guess, we'll probably fill that in the B wave, come back up to 80,000 region and find resistance somewhere all in that area. It's kind of just the big expectation before we do see that final partner leg to the downside. I have a lot of levels down at 50K, 45K, 40K, 37K, big anchored VWAP. You can see the big purple line coming from the lows at 15K. All that is really big support. It really just kind of depends on where this B wave fully ends, and then we can get that clear one-to-one extension target. Here I just have it, just a random pull. Maybe the B wave comes to 80K. Maybe the one-to-one extension is at $37,000. Totally reasonable. We don't know where the B wave will end, but we are looking for that $40,000, $35,000 level. Now remember, we have that order block there, that small zone of support at 42K. Below that, you could consider deviation. We have the big logarithmic golden pocket Fibonacci level 618 at 35K. There's a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of confluence lining up. This next move down will probably cause a lot of fear, and that's when we're going to retrace, but then eventually we're going to come back down to 40K. That's the primary expectation I have for you guys. Just wanted to make a quick update. Thank you for tuning in.